Hello and welcome uh, to the Active Directory and IT Security virtual seminar series. I am Hari Shekhar and I usually known as Harry. And for people who know me, welcome back. And for people who are seeing this for the first time, I hope this content is informative. But before we actually get started, can you please let me know if you can see my screen okay and hear me fine? If everything is good, just poke in the chat window saying everything is good, okay, yes. If you can see my screen and hear me okay. Fantastic. I'm being given the go ahead. Everything is good. And a couple of housekeeping stuff. The slide decks will reach out to you ASAP. And as you all are aware, as we all are working from home, this is being done from the respective speakers' home. We are not at the office, so you know how the bandwidth of the home networks are. So everybody is using the bandwidth. So just in case if anything happens, a glitch or an outage, please do not worry. We have backups ready. We will be sending you the video recording, the decks to your email ASAP, right? So that is taken care of. The slide deck will come reaching at your mailbox as soon as possible. And that's my email address, which is harry@manageengine.com. So you can reach out to me for any help, anything that I'm about to discuss, anything that I'm about to show you, feel free to write to me and we can strike a conversation, right? These are difficult times, and I wanted to make sure that the content that I have prepared is of utmost importance and is of relevance and of use to everyone that is a part of my talk. So I have a simple agenda, but I will be focusing on small nuances, which I want administrators, IT security professionals to pay attention to. And if you've already have done it, kudos, but there are a lot of the approach that I have taken today is problem-based solution approach. And the reason why I have opted for this is the problems are real. When I talk about hybrid Active Directory, though the platforms are different, the problems around them are the same. Across from Australia to Canada, they look the same, but the problems are real. It's every IT administrators are finding it extremely difficult to manage the hybrid Active Directory. That's just one of example. But today we are going to target hybrid Active Directory. We're going to target data storage. We're going to target network. We're going to target everything in an organization from switches, routers. So how could you build a solution that could potentially tell you what is happening, and once it is happening, mitigate it, help you comply, and solve everything that is related to IT security, right? So that is what I have in store for you. So the first thing that I will be talking about is importance of security awareness, the habit and culture. And why is IT security the need of the hour? It's always been, but it's just that many organizations kind of let it go, thinking we can postpone it later. Now is not the time. But with the COVID-19 based phishing attacks taking a prowl, now would be the best time, in fact, the most important time for IT security to come back and provide the same importance it should get. And when I talk about dealing with attacks, I'm going to talk about three different attacks. When I talk about three different attacks, it's the known, the unknown, the unknown. I'll be talking deeper, but the output that I'm going to talk about, the overall premise that I'm going to talk about is hybrid Active Directory, privileged users, data storage, user behavior analytics, and then a prelude to Log 360, right? Pointing you to resources. These are new, fresh content that are available off the shelf. And when I say off the shelf new content is you could go ahead and take a look at them. The links would be sent to your email along with the deck, but if you want, you can take a screen capture, and these are available for passing it to your customers or to you or to your entire team. And this is pure content with minimal product pitching here. So the reason why I've done this is it's high time we as the IT security workforce community across the globe know what we are dealing with. How can a hacker get into an organization? Why is PowerShell used as a cyber attack tool? How are the domain attack attempts being done. When I talk about domain attack attempts, it is the reconnaissance attempt. And then 10 must audit events for hybrid active directory. These are pure content, and all you need to do is go get into a browser and blogs.manageengine.com, and this is what we have done just 2 weeks ago. So right here, just go ahead, PowerShell, and we have done extensive research on how you could, why PowerShell is used as a cyber attack tool in the first place, and then how could you and why should you monitor any activity done on PowerShell, because now this is what people are doing, and it is known as live off the land attack. There is a specific campaign that's been run around the LOTL. So if you are interested, post this webinar, write to me, and I will pass that campaign as well, where you can learn a lot about attacks that are happening across your ecosystem. And trust me, those attacks are legitimate attacks. So there's no red flag raised. It could just be happening on any machine because it's using system files. In that case, how would you detect it? So this is where LOTL stands. And please make use of these resources. And I would be more than happy to pass you all of them. And in fact, we're doing a lot more. And keep in touch with me. I will be providing you all of this content. And where did I get these content from? Administrators, IT security professionals, CISO, compliance managers. This is what I do for a living. I go meet all of them. I solve their problems using Manage Engine tool sets, but I learn their problem. And once I come back to my turf, I understand the problem even better, and I go behind making content. So thank you for providing me with these insights. But if you have any more problems around IT security, just drop an email to me, right? I said I will be dealing with attacks, where to start, what to do. So the first thing is the known. The second is the unknown and mysterious. The third is the unknown and unknown. When I talk about the known, let's quote some examples. The first is ransomware attack, brute force attack, privilege escalations. These are something that's been known, or at least we are trying to know them better over the years. Then comes the second category, which is the unknown and mysterious, which is the native tool abuse, PowerShell attack, password spray attack, hybrid active directory, Office 365 mailbox breaches. So this is the unknown and mysterious, because all these days, Microsoft has been talking to people, asking them to learn PowerShell, and PowerShell is the commonmost tool to play with hybrid active directory. So when people start learning a particular tool which has a UI, they tend to learn a bit more, and Google does help you. So in that case, the live off the land attack, which uses the internal system utilities for an attack, it is very difficult to identify which is a legitimate attack and which is just being used by one of your developers or your quality engineers. And then comes the unknown and unknown. What do I mean by unknown and unknown? It is a file that is being downloaded by someone. It could be a keylogger, but it can just be sitting on a file server. It's just unknown. By mistake, a user might have clicked on it, and it can just be sitting there unnoticed, but it's still doing its job. The Windows Defender will classify it as a threat, but still the job's not done. The file is still there, so it can still be manually executed for a period of the time before the Windows Defender comes back and classifies it against a threat. So there are a lot of unknowns. And what are the consequences through the unknowns? This is what I am talking as the unknown and unknown. So with this premise being set, the importance of security awareness, what is being done, what are the habits, what are the cultures? Over half of the world's internet traffic is now done on mobile device. Back in the days, it was just desktops, then moved to laptops, now mobile devices. So the actual, now it's all trendy, but there's a new problem. So you need to ensure that all of these platforms are taken care of. The data is available on all of these three platforms, and you need to secure these platforms as well. And approximately 4,000 ransomware attacks happen every day. And email malware lurks is 1 out of every 131 emails people click. And especially now with the COVID-19 themed phishing attacks. where they just simply write an email, please do not click or download the attachments. This was over the years the same email, but now they have rechanged that. They now pick a line as a subject saying, if you want to know if you are attacked by corona, click here. So this is how simple, and people fall because it's fear, because nobody knows what is happening now, and everybody wants to stay protected, and they are taking advantage of this. There's been a lot of domain registration, especially related to COVID-19, and who did claim that they were, instances where they were being tried for a hack, where many attackers did try attacking who. So in that case, IT security right now is the need of the hour. And the reason for it is 46% of consumers say they won't purchase from a business knowing it's been hacked or breached, right? So the need of the hour, I'm going to pick on a use case. So this is the Marriott breach, which happened across the globe, though it panned out in the US. 2014 is when the attack happened, and the world got to know about it. In fact, Marriott got to know about it in 2018. 4 years is a lot of time. So an attacker could potentially do anything and everything with that given time, right? But the key problem that we have to focus is, how did this attack happen? So slowly digging deep, decrypting the attack, there were rat malware and Mimikatz installation were found on an endpoint. So this is where you need to have an endpoint, or rather have a SIM solution poking into every single corner of your organization, right? With that being said, the premise being laid, the theme being defined, do you see any difference? I know this is a webinar, but feel free to poke in the chat. Let's keep it interactive, because I know one way of communication just gets a little bit tiresome, but two-way is where we go the distance. So do you see any difference? Do they appear any different, or are they same? But as you write the answer, let me give you a clue. One is a work group machine, and one is a domain joint machine. Now, are they different? Are they still the same? Well, in appearance, they look the same, but they bring in a different meaning altogether, because one is a work group machine, the technology before Active Directory was born, and then comes the Active Directory, right? So this is where everything starts. I will be talking about hybrid Active Directory, users, privileged users, data storage, and more. So please deal with the problem, and the problems are real. And through the problems is where I will be connecting the dots for a solution. But if you have a SIM solution, just make sure that the problems that I discussed today are taken care of, right? Active Directory, Azure Active Directory, a quick comparison. On the left is my Microsoft on-premise Active Directory. On my right is my Azure Active Directory. So the on-premise uses Kerberos. For authentication, LDAP, of course, that's NTLM2. LDAP, DNS for locating objects, and you require physical domain controller, which acts as a central authority. On the other side, for Azure, you don't need a physical domain controller. You do not know where it exists in the first place. DNS is managed by Azure. It uses Samuel, WS Federation, OAuth, and of course, you use APIs. So the reason why I've differentiated this and brought in this picture is now people have hybrid infrastructure. Now, Azure AD Domain Services supports LDAP for queries and Kerberos for authentication, right? I'll be asking you questions. You can write your answers on chat or make notes and ensure that this never happens. People in the past used to access data in your organization. So they used to join a network, perimeter network, and there were restrictions that were put on the firewall. So basically, you need to be at the office or connect to the domain to get work done. But now that everybody's working from home, VPN is the gateway for remote access, the most used to get into the domain, to either collaborate, to get work done, or to get resources. One needs access to VPN. But let's cut it down. I'm going to give it to you in pieces so that we can puzzle it together. So the first thing in Active Directory, because that is being used 95% across the globe for authentication. What authentication protocol is being used in your environment? Of course, Kerberos, which is the most secure form of authentication. But there is NTLM2. So these are the two authentication mechanisms by which Active Directory gives you access into your organization, right? But now people are at home, so you have enhanced and given the access to people through VPN, and this will potentially tell you what happens is how could a user get access into the domain. So in which case, VPN, there are three forms that could potentially be done. One is a username and password, and it could be any VPN provider, and it gives access to domain controller, which is what most of the organizations are doing as on date. A tip to all of y'all, just in case if this is what is happening, please do not resurface email as the username. Please do not resurface a weak password because it is so brittle, just a username and password. So they can break it. So in that case, I want you to audit every single user who is using the username and password to connect to your organization, right? Focusing on point 2, which is radius logon activity. When I talk about radius logon activity, these are dedicated servers which act as a gateway to give access to people. So you can put rules. Of course, you still have username and password. Many VPN providers do provide MFA, but the point I want to focus is when you start focusing on radius logon activity, you can put curfew. You can go ahead and put IP restrictions. Only certain users are allowed. So it gives you more security protocols that could be used instead of just a username and password and give them access. And tip 3, which is when we talk about remote gateway activity, for many people, let me show you this, MSDSC, show options, advanced setting. So this is what I am talking about, the remote gateway server settings. So what this does is this is a hosted server, and people through HTTPS, people access this server to gain access to the domain. So there are 3 ways by which people access VPN to get access to the domain. And now I want you all to start focusing on what is happening, who is logging in from where, what happened. The reason why I'm asking you to track all of this is where problem starts. So let's take this case, the slide which shows the radius NPS failure, which is logon failure at NPS. It tells you the domain, who, IP, the domain controller, the date and time, failure or success, because this is a failure, but history will tell you the user authentication attempt, which is exceeded what is being given on a group policy. So for all these 3 aspects, you need a solution, or you need to start focusing on how a user got access into your Active Directory and thereby through to your resource, right? This is important right now because not many people have stressed about VPN in the past, but now this is the gateway to organization. And I want you all to take charge. If you have a solution, focus on VPN access, focus on radius, focus on remote gateway. And I want you to, the reason why I'm asking you to target this is where forensics comes into picture. Now, I told you problem-based solution. The problem right now, the first one is VPN. Ensure that the VPN access are being audited, monitored, and through that you get reports. If not, a solution like AD Audit Plus from Manage Engine, which is a real-time solution, will help you find out what is going on. So this, as we are talking about VPN, there is another use case. So let's say all of the endpoints are at home. People are at home, they're doing busy work, and they don't connect to the domain, but they still do their activity like log in, log off, process starting, and many other things on their endpoints. So how could you track the information of endpoints, which is basically the log in, log off, log their attentiveness, how long have they spent on a specific application, etc. So in this case, a solution like AD Audit Plus helps you put their agents on the endpoint, so you can host AD Audit Plus server and the agents can talk to them, meaning being an IT administrator, you have to have eyes everywhere. I don't call this spying, I call this staying one step ahead of the curve. So you can potentially know what users are doing. And in fact, 80 Audit Plus has user behavior analytics, which I will be dealing in due course, or your SIM solution must be having machine learning algorithms, which will potentially tell what a user is doing and tell you what is happening, right? So this is the VPN that I wanted to focus about. And step two, how could users abuse your organization? Attacks could be internal, external, but let's focus on, as we have become lenient on extending security for users to ensure that they get work done when they're working from home, because as it is, people are worried, so you don't want to add more worry to them. So in that case, we might have slipped a bit, given them a little bit more convenience and giving into the leniency. But my point is, insider threat is one of the biggest threat ever. So how could a user identify a domain, survey the domain? So this is what is called as the domain recon attempt. So the resources that I have pointed before will give you a detailed study of this, where people having access to command prompt to PowerShell can break an organization, right? But a question coming to you all: how many of your users have access to command prompt and PowerShell? Yes means all of them. No means only few. Definitely no means no one has access. Poke it into the chat, because I am going to throw a challenge to you all right now. Right in front of your eyes, I will break an organization in just 4 steps by using PowerShell. Why am I using PowerShell? Because no one notices PowerShell. PowerShell is the gateway to understand hybrid Active Directory. That was the UI, that was the tool that Microsoft recommends for people to understand hybrid Active Directory, to get work done, to save time. PowerShell, right? So this is where I am going to start my activity. I hope you all can see my screen. So to keep the experiment fair, I'm going to get into my domain controller. I will show you who I am. Fantastic. Sweet. Active Directory users and computers. Right click. Find Harish. That's me. Fantastic. Member of, just domain user. If you are a big fan of Microsoft, as I, of course, I love and hate the relationship that I pose with Microsoft, but I do love their least privilege article, where they break down how to go ahead and build or have an Active Directory position. So that is what I focus, and that is how I frame this, because when a user gets created an Active Directory, he or she becomes a part of the domain users group. Perfect. So Harish has no access, but right now I am going to do another activity, but I'm not Harish, but I want you to focus on this problem too. So this is where I focus. I do right click, delegate control. I am logged in as Tim. Right click, which is also one of the problems. So focus on the problems here. So let me do add. Let me do Harry. Next. Manage group links. Create, delete, manage groups. Modify membership of a group. Next. Finish. So remember the problems. I showed you who Harish is. Harish is a domain user with 0 access. And then Tim, but all of a sudden, while talking to you all, just granted Harry the permission to go ahead and do certain modifications on the sales OU. 2 different problems. Harish is different. Harry is different. All right. So let's go into my client. I am logging in as Harish with my username and password. And now I open up PowerShell. Fantastic. To keep the experiment fair, well, I'll even show you this. The access that I have is DSA. I don't even have access to Active Directory users and computers. I'll even prove it one step further. 1, network settings, right? Change adapter settings. right? Properties. I don't have access to do anything on this endpoint, but still I can find out what's happening in my network. First thing, who am I? I want to see what privilege I have as a user. Fantastic. I am a part of these groups, right? So the actual thing that I'm doing right now is this could be, not easy to the eye, but I will give you the commands once I get an email from you all. The second step is who are my privileged users? ABHI, Harry, Administrator, Service Account, CEO, Tim are a part of my domain admins. Step 3, or rather step 2, because who am I does not count. I want to find out NL test, DC list, domain name, ad-dc1.adsolutions.com is my primary domain controller. This is my step 2 or step 3 rather, because I found out what privilege I have, my privileged users, my privileged resources. And step 4 is when I break open your organization. So I want you to pay attention to this, because this is where Microsoft does help you to identify that there is a breach or does not allow you to do any or unnecessary scripts. So I am going to go ahead and do import module, domain password spray. But here's the catch. This is brilliant. Microsoft just told me, Harish, you can't do this because this script cannot be trusted. But here's the deal. So what I'm going to do is PowerShell, PowerShell.exe, exec bypass. Now see what I could do. I'm going to redo the same import module, invoke domain password spray, password at 123, which is the most common password. Yes. Now the yellow lines are, it's reading the domain policies, and the green is the success. So now tell me, in just 4 steps, Harish, with 0 privilege in Active Directory or any access, as I proved it to you live, just found out 2 users with weak passwords, Belgium, and there's a bigger problem. One of my service accounts is talking to password at 123, right? So now tell me, if I log in as Belgium or my service underscore SA with the password provided, does that mean a legitimate login, or is that a breach? For people who said, no, you cannot do it in 4 steps, how did this experiment pan out? I hope this experiment was useful. So this is where you have to identify what is happening in your network, who is doing what. So by default, you cannot audit PowerShell. By default, it is not audited. You need to go ahead and enable settings. But see what we have done in a solution like AD Audit Plus, server audit. I told you about domain discovery. Let's do PowerShell script block logging. Harish at 11:28:20 a.m. did a domain password spray. Details from this machine run by Harish, loaded at this time. This is the event number. You click the details, and once the alert has been flagged, you can go ahead and mitigate it, meaning you can go ahead and take Harish off your network. You can disable it. You can raise a flag to the system. But why do attackers love PowerShell? It's a fileless malware because command prompt is disabled. PowerShell is not. Built-in remoting from Windows 7 to above, comes in for free, runs on memory, untraceable by antivirus. Tons of free scripts, just like how I showed it to you, and organizations are not watching PowerShell activity, right? So these are the event IDs that you need to pay attention. So if you have a SIM solution, go ahead and put these events into practice And once you have them in place, your SIM solution will start figuring out what needs to be done. But a solution like AD Audit Plus for Managed Engine does it automatically for your critical device, for your endpoints, for your domain controllers, file servers, member servers, anywhere that a user could potentially use PowerShell. We would go ahead and track them and tell you when things don't go according to plan. PowerShell activity, domain discovery, domain recon. Why should a user know about a privileged accounts? Why should a user do a password spray attack, right? So this is my second problem, where we spoke about VPN. Of course, the domain recon using command prompt will actually be my second problem. But the third problem is where we focus on PowerShell native tool abuse. So when we're talking about command prompt, see what we have in store for you. We can do LDAP auditing, number of daily LDAP bind or LDAP searches, I'm sorry, which will tell you what search he or she did on your entire ecosystem using LDAP, right? So this is where we have taken it to the next level of auditing. And of course, the part that you all have been requesting is coming now, right? On-premise Active Directory attacks, right? You might have seen it, but would you believe that Office 365 recently was under attack? It was compromised. The integrity of Azure Active Directory is currently being questioned. And guess what? This is what Microsoft said. It says enable MFA, and the irony is one of the account that was breached had MFA enabled, and all people were asking is how could we get a brute force attack report or a password spray report, for which Microsoft said implement advanced threat intelligence available only to E5 subscription levels or greater. And of course, when I got this email, I went in, I found out the source where it happened. I will be more than happy to share the information with you all. And this is what it says. So it says Office 365 E5, which is $35 a user per month. It was like, oh my God, of course, for 1 to 5 users, okay. But what happens if an organization has 50 users and more, or 100 users and more, or 500 users and more? How could they, just for a simple report, how can they, pay so much? So this is where what we have done is a solution like AD Audit Plus now focuses on hybrid Active Directory, on-premise, Azure Active Directory, Office 365, and we even tell you when there is a brute force, when there is a password spray attack, or when there is a remote PowerShell activity, and through which an account lockout or a brute force happens. So we would potentially tell you almost the minute we have the logs. So if there's a brute force, 1,000 events in 5 times, we will tell you login failure. And if people mess up with the MFA, so twice they log in and they don't get the OTP right, we would raise an alarm. We would tell you when things go wrong. And the other way by which you could potentially have a brute force or any attacks that could get into Office 365 is remote PowerShell. So my AD Audit Plus looks into your tenant and starts auditing all of these information, right? So this is where I wanted to talk about attacks. We spoke about a couple of things, and I showed you a live demonstration for on-premise. Similarly, I could do the same for Office 365, and you don't have to be a PowerShell guru. Everything is available online, right? So shifting gears, moving into the privileged access. There are a lot of privileged accounts. When I talk about privileged accounts, any user more than just enough access is called privileged user for me, period. If they just have one or a small access above to what is required, they are privileged users. So how would you start tracking them? So of course, there are 2 ways by which privilege escalations could potentially happen. Of course, 3. One is through group policy, where I could go ahead and give them extra privilege than required. 2 is through groups, nested groups. 3 is explicit ACL ACEs. So in which case, let's go back to my domain, live experiment time, right? Go into Active Directory users and computers. Fantastic. Log in. And now I am going to go ahead and open up a group, which most of y'all, in fact, all of y'all will have this group. It's called Help Desk. Fantastic. Help Desk. And if I do any changes to this group, will any of you be worried at all? It's just a help desk group, and potentially they will be resetting or unlocking accounts. So in this case, members, remove, yes, and add. Oh, of course, CEO. Who doesn't like the CEO and domain admins or help desk groups, right? So for people who said you would not be bothered, just one step back, I just showed you the members, but I never showed you the member of. Well, this is a nested group, but anything that a user has access to help desk group now has an indirect connection to the domain admins. But just see what AD Audit Plus does for me. So right here under Home tab, without me doing anything, my tool, AD Audit Plus, tells me that a nested group change has happened, sensing it as it's a part of the domain admins, one of the most privileged groups in Active Directory. I didn't do anything. It senses automatically. You just need to set it up once, and the tool will start figuring out who did what, when, where, even if it's a nested group. It's just not a direct domain admin group attack. It was an indirect attack. The tool sensed that. Who did it? Hawala was removed. Help desk was added. This were the things that were performed. And please do bear in mind, I was talking about permissions, right? Tim did go ahead and perform OU level changes. So in this case, let's go back last 1 hour today, OU permission changes, right? So in which case, 11:24 a.m., Tim, who changed it, new ACLs, Harry was added. In fact, I can show it you on the remarks. There you go. Harry was added, delete, create group, read permissions. So technically, when you get into Active Directory, there is no way you can undo it or go ahead and check out what was done in the past. Of course, there's something called effective group membership where you could go ahead, effective access, which can tell you who's got what access, but you need to see it every single time. So in which case, a solution like AD Audit Plus, you can put a curfew saying any container changes, alert me. Any high OU changes, alert me. Any permission on the domain, any permission done on your schema, or any changes done in your Active Directory, notify me real time, right? This is any group policy changes, any DNS schema, any changes done on your Active Directory, on your hybrid Active Directory, we will notify them once we have the information, right? And other important activities to track, permissions and privilege changes, which I told you. Then there's account lockout. I'm not sure how many of you are taking advantage of this particular amazing feature that we have. So let me get into AD Audit Plus, reports, user management, account lockout analyzer, which technically tells you if an account, why an account is getting locked out from where. When you click on these details, it's almost looking into 10 plus components to tell you or zero in the use case as to why an account is getting locked out, right? So in this case, right here, you can start with Windows Service, Schedule, Task, COM, Objects, Applications, OWA, Active Sync. So when we talk about applications, it even focuses on your services.msc page or any of the applications where you go ahead and list an account. And that could also lead to an account lockout. There's Radius NPS, the VPN access that I told you, OWA Active Sync, recent logon. So this is one important report that I would want you all to take advantage. And then there's ADFS auditing, disabled users logon attempt, which I potentially, in other words, it's called ghost account reappearance. Password never expires. Login failure for admin users or C-level people. So these are important activities that you need to track, right? So with that being said on the hybrid Active Directory, there is, of course, let me just go one step back because I wanted you all to see this as well. So let me see this right here. So do you see these error codes? Potentially, let me scroll down. These are the error codes in Azure Active Directory. So what you could do is you could even go back to AD Audit Plus, Azure Active Directory, which is from the same UI, you get to manage your hybrid Active Directory. And once you have the reports, you could go ahead and filter them based on the error codes. Because Azure Active Directory has given you the error codes and when do they fall. So you can even streamline them. And this is also very effective if you have AD Audit Plus, where you can start figuring out error codes based problems, because if this is the error code, this is the problem, right? So going further into data storage, of course, a simple attack, brute force, or rather a ransomware attack through a simple email. I am the perpetrator, you all are the respective delegated people, and I send you an email. Click here to know if you have been attacked by COVID-19. We click and we get the access, right? So how could you fight the war against ransomware? So in this case, you need a solution that will potentially tell you that files are being encrypted. People click on a file from a machine, and that's the reason it all got encrypted, recreated, logged, permissions changed, deleted, files deleted. So all of this plays together as ransomware. So how could you solve this? Your security logs could help you, but not as real time as you would like. So we have a solution if you are looking out for. It's called Data Security Plus for your Microsoft ecosystem. But we just don't stop there by telling you ransomware attacks. We provide end-to-end mitigation as well. When there is a ransomware attack, you will be notified, and by the time you read the email, you can put your phone back down and the tool would have mitigated the attack. So let's take a look at the ransomware file alert. So two use cases. If I click the file on the file server, use case one. If I click the file on my endpoint through an email, and through my access, SMB access into my resources, files get encrypted. Two specific use cases, how would you solve them? So this is where Data Security Plus, has mastered this. You can install agents. This is agent-based solution on your endpoints too. So a person clicking on a document or a file on their endpoint, and through which a file server gets corrupted, we would still identify the source as their endpoint. So we have that now available. So you could download and test it as we speak. You can roll it out to your end users. And the actual reason why we have focused on endpoint is data loss prevention. So we're speaking about ransomware attacks. So let me click on them. So I have about 5 ransomware attacks that have happened in the past on the same day. So what you could do is you could click get into ransomware file. I have a built-in template where we have customized what needs to be done, right? So in which case, these are the file extensions, monitor, and once this has been done, you could go ahead and mitigate an attack as well. You could go ahead and write your own scripts to mitigate it, or we give you our custom scripts where you could go ahead and call them and mitigate the attack once an attack is being triggered. So these actions are all live and it is real time. So you just can't keep waiting. The tool will take the solution off the grid, or we have opened up the platform where you could go ahead and write your own scripts to solve the problem, right? And of course, file analysis, who's got what access to what level, everything the tool will tell you. There is risk analysis. So if you have to comply to a compliance, seeing what data exists, who's got what access on your storage level on your Microsoft ecosystem, this solution can help. It can help you run down deep, identify files. If you have a regular expression, we could go ahead and tell you where this information exists on a file, and the location, right? And last but not the least on this specific segment is the endpoint. And when I talk about endpoint, let me go back in as Harish, log in as Harish. Fantastic. Let me minimize. And right now I delete few files. I've become rogue today. I just can't. Let me go ahead and delete it. And one, Control C, Control V. I want to copy this file because it contains important information, or I want to put it on my thumb drive, or I want to put it on my Exchange client, on-premise Exchange client. So in which case, see what happens. File copied report, April 22, 11:46 a.m. Endpoint, accessed by Harish. File copied, location, process name, client host. So everything that a user does is under radar. Even on their endpoint, file integrity monitoring is being watched. How many files I deleted, how many files I paid attention to, right? The importance of this specific segment of Data Security Plus is to help administrators and IT security professionals stand with report, especially when things go wrong. So I want you all to have reports to substantiate the administrator or an IT security forefront, where in case if we get pulled into a meeting, we need to have authenticated reports, because on the other side, people just get away so easy, and eventually all boils down and hurts the administrator, right? So this is the Data Security Plus component which I wanted to talk about. Of course, I did run through all of them, where you got permissions, data classification, storage analysis, system misuse, attacks. And what have we added to our data security is endpoint security, prevent data leaks, such as personal information, personal health information via USB or emails, right? So last but not the least is how could we help you do everything without doing anything? So this is where we have introduced user behavior analytics, where you could go ahead and install AD Audit Plus, and this tool will automatically start identifying patterns, starting reading users through machine learning algorithms, and it will associate a user with specific activity. And once if anything mismatches, it will raise a flag. It will auto assess a user once it has started defining thresholds, right? This is automatic. This is across the organization for the components that you have in AD Audit Plus. And any deviations or anomalies from the baselines are flagged and user risk score are provided, right? This comes inbuilt. So once you install AD Audit Plus, you can go ahead and start tracking user behavior analytics. So if a person downloaded 100 files, deleted files, deviated user logon behavior, 10 times login failures, 11 times success. So this will raise a flag, and this is available right now, and you don't have to do anything. It is within the tool, and it reads the machine learning algorithm, using the machine learning algorithm, right? So that is a prelude to Manage Engine Log 360, which is our SIM solution. I focused on AD Audit Plus and data security, which is a part of Log 360, but my colleague Sid, who's going to come up next, he will be dealing on the event log analyzer to give you a cohesive piece on Log 360. But since you guys were amazing, answered a lot of my questions, I wanted to throw you all an amazing, interesting offer as well. So if you have AD Audit Plus, we could help you for the same components that you have in AD Audit with a Log 360 license. And if you are interested in testing any of what I told, if you are interested in implementing Log 360, just email me and we would be more than happy to do a free online implementation or a demo. And how could you do that? Drop an email to harry@manageengine.com. It's HARY@manageengine.com. I'm just an email away always. So anything that I spoke today, anything that I showed, anything that I shared, my resources, I would be more than happy to be getting your email. Just drop a line, pass a feedback, something that we could engage together, something we could do things better. It's just an email away. It's harry@manageengine.com. Thank you so much, and I hope you found this content informative. And I now pass the stage to Sid, who's amazing, and he will be talking about Block 360 as the SIM solution for Managed Engine, but giving you more problems in terms of your network around your organization. Thanks, and over to you, Sid.